My name is Dave Stahlman, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my my printout of my presentation here so I can use it as notes to talk through here. There it is. I am a senior executive with Accenture in our management consulting practice. My background is strategy. What I'm here to talk about today is strategic planning. And you think, gee, strategic planning, what do you need a strategic plan for? And before I ask you why we need strategic plans, I'll say that I often tell clients, look, a strategic plan can be a 40-page, glossy, wonderful-looking document, or it could be 3 PowerPoint slides. Okay? So what do you need a strategic plan for? So let me pause and ask you guys. What do you need a strategic plan for? Why do you
so you can be prepared?
Be prepared. Be prepared for what?
Whatever the topic is or what the
Okay,
discussion.
actually, it's good. If I had prizes, I'd give you. You'll see why a little bit later. What else would you need a strategic plan? What's the purpose? Excuse me?
If you need investors.
If you need investors, what do investors want to know? How does a strategic plan help investors?
Where the company's going.
Where you're going, what you're planning to do, right? Good.
How successful it will be.
How successful you hope it will be, right? Right. What else does a strategic plan do for you?
Plan for competitors. Like you have to plan out what your competitors are going to do.
Okay. That's part of a strategic plan. That's in there. What else do you use a strategic plan for? Besides communicating to investors, who else do you communicate to?
Yourself and your staff.
Yourself and your staff. What the heck are we trying to do, guys? And how are we going to get there? Okay. So in its essence, a strategic plan sounds like this big lofty thing, but in essence, in many, many ways, at its core, it's a communications vehicle, right? It is something that says, here's what we're trying to do, here's how we're going to do it, and here's where we're going to be. Here's what we're going to do. Here's where we're trying to go, here's why we're trying to go, here's how we're going to get there, and here's why we're taking that approach. Okay? That's what strategic planning is for. So if I okay, one of the recent changes in strategic planning that's come along in the last last few years, I guess, but even some before then, is changing the horizon, changing the approach. It used to be, and this is funny because this is happening throughout business and throughout in technology and business. It used to be, let's get a lot of information, let's plan everything, let's look way out in the future, and say, okay, for the next 5, 10 years, here's exactly what we're going to do. And what's interesting about that is that fit in nicely with developing technology and other things of, okay, let's go out and collect a lot of requirements, let's do a lot of planning about this system, let's do this and plan this and do this, and in 5 or 10 years or however long you get something. Well, more and more, business is trying to struggle, is working with the idea of, okay, how do we keep that long-term vision approach of, we know we want to go there somewhere, but you know what, the world changes a whole lot faster now than it used to change. How do we keep going with that? And one of the key things that that's being added to this now is the idea of scenario analysis and scenario planning. So how do you keep an idea? Oh, there we go. How do you keep a target on where you're trying to go and go with and then use scenario planning to keep up? So I'm going to is this what I use?
Yep, it's clicker.
Is this it?
It's actually this computer that's running this PowerPoint.
This one right here, okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. So let me pause for a moment here. We talked about that. Used to have long-term planning horizon, lots of historical data for estimates, not a lot of analytical rigor. Primary focus was delivering a strategy, and it's frustrating sometimes. Just this morning, somebody called up and asked me for an example of some strategic plans we've done that we could show some potential clients and potential teaming partners. And he asked for one in particular that was given to every member of Congress after we did the plan. That's kind of cool. That's a cool statement. I said, okay, I'll give you that one, but I'll also give you this one, because that one was nice. It's good. We did this one though, and as a result of this one, here are the things that happened directly as a result of that strategic plan and all the other things that the organization did. I said, I'd rather give you that one because it actually had legs and did things. So actually focus on delivering it. But what we're trying to do now is get more dynamic, more robust, better understanding of what if and how do you deal with things that come up. How do you prepare for those unexpected things that might come up to do things? How do you make your organization agile? And I generally don't like consulting terms like agile, but actually it works out pretty well here. So, and I'm sorry, we're going to go slow quickly because I know that I'm a little bit I'm way behind. I'll make sure we hit the key points. Strategic planning framework generally falls into three pieces. Strategic planning. What is it we're trying to accomplish? And again, I'm saying corporate. If you're planning a lemonade stand, if you're planning a after-school tutoring thing for your class, whatever it is, same things, okay? So this could be for Toyota, or it could be for whatever kind of garage kind of activities you have. Strategic planning. What is it we're trying to do? What's the market look like? What does the market need? What do customers need? Who are the competitors? We'll go through all of these things here. Okay, if that's what we're trying to do, you create an operating model strategy that says, okay, how am I going to create an organization with the capabilities to do that? Okay, who are my teammates going to be? What's my staff look like? What skills do they need to have? What technology do I need to have? How does that all fit together? That's the operating model strategy. We're not talking about that at strategic planning. We're saying that what do you need? This makes it happen. And then the enterprise transformation is the, okay, making this real. And this assumes the organization doesn't already exist and you're changing something. But of course, if something doesn't already exist, then of course you go strategic planning, operating model strategy, then just go build it, right? And sustainability is not environmental sustainability, although it's a piece of it, but the longer term sustainability of keeping an eye on things, making sure the approach is still working. Make sense so far? Good deal. So, I won't give a Navy story, but I will give one of my favorite. Actually, I was pleased to hear that we're actually planning a memorial down in the mall for Dwight Eisenhower, General President. He has 3 quotes I use all the time. You only get 2 of these today unless you ask for the third. But 2 of them I really enjoy. One is, of course, I'm sorry, Dwight Eisenhower. I realize Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during World War II. He was the one who oversaw coordinating the American Army, the French Army, the British Army, everybody else who was fighting the Germans in Europe during World War II to beat Nazi Germany. Plans are nothing. Planning is everything. Okay, you think, well, wait a second. He has a great plan on how you're going to win the war. It's a great plan to land troops in Normandy at D-Day. What do you mean plans are nothing, planning is everything? And his point is, just coming up with a document that says, hey, here's what we're going to do, is not really useful unless everybody understands why it is you're going to do that and what went into the thinking behind that. And so the planning process, let's get people in a room. Let's identify what we're good at, what we're not good at, what they're good at, what we're not good at. Let's talk about how things are going to go with everybody aware of what's going on board and bought into what's going on, and part of the process. And I say everybody. Of course, it's not everybody. There's thought of who you choose. But getting that involved, then you have a plan, but behind that plan you have planning. And so, Dave, you're playing semantics. Why is that important? His number 2 quote. No plan survives contact with the enemy, okay? Things will change. The world will change. Your key employee will leave and go find a new job. Some big box store will open up down the road from you. Your key customer will quit. You'll get some new key customer. Something will happen that you didn't plan for. If you did the planning right, and you know why you made the decisions you made in the plan that you thought you planned to make, then it's easy to say, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work out the way we planned, but here's how we go there. Let's say you go to the wrong building for a presentation. Okay, well, at least you have the capabilities in the vehicle and in the electronics to say, okay, how the heck do I get there to be where I go? So no plan survives contact with the enemy. And that gets a lot to the uncertainty that we face in the modern world around planning. Okay, some time ago, a big car company could just say, okay, you know what, for the next 10 years, we're going to build this car, and here's how many of those cars we're going to build, and we'll do just fine. It doesn't work today, right? what do you suppose Apple's 10-year plan looks like? I'm not sure Apple has a 10-year plan, right? I mean, other than saying, hey, we're going to be great, okay? So that's nice picture of a general. But what does that really mean? Can anybody? Okay, we're really going to focus on the left side of this page, and I'll help you with it. On strategic planning takes two phases: the analysis phase, the strategy design phase. On the analysis side, there's basically two things that are happening. One is you're looking outside your organization, right? Second thing is you're looking inside your organization, okay? And you're doing those simultaneously. Looking outside, and I'll go through these in detail in a couple other slides. You're looking outside, external analysis, what's happening in the industry, who are the competitors, and based on that, you do some scenario planning. And I'll talk about scenarios of where's this going, where do we think the world's going, but not so much where do we think the world's going, but what does it mean to us if the world's going in certain directions? And then opportunities and strategic direction based on this. Okay, so what's the right answer? Meanwhile, though, there's internal analysis. This top segment is all really cool, you know, and it's all fun to do, but you got to know what your organization is capable of. And this is critical because on one hand, you're looking, okay, what are we capable of and where do we need to change in order to adapt to that? What are we better at than anybody else, and how do we look for opportunities up here that exploits the ability that we're better than anybody else? What are those things that we're behind the curve, and you know what? Any weakness, you look at weaknesses and you say, hey, I'm weak in that area. I can either improve that area, okay, or I can mitigate it, right? And it's a mistake to say that you can improve everything, right? So if I know that my organization is really, I have a lot of really expensive people and they just live in a high cost area and they are, you know, prima donnas and they want to earn a lot of money, okay, that's fine. Well, then I got to make sure up here that I'm not trying to do something that's low cost, right? Or I do something. So you have to understand your organization and understand what you can change and what you can't change and what you should change while you're looking at the outside. Then after that, you basically, there's a lot of boxes to say, take the decisions you made and just test them and evaluate them and make sure they're right before you go live with some, you know, good consulting words. Just so you know, this is our, what I'm walking you through here is what Accenture uses as the blueprint for how do we do strategic planning for corporations or for government agencies. I mean, this is it. So the first, any questions so far? Oh, geez, 10 minutes, okay. First part, external analysis. People from here are familiar with Porter's 5 forces. Michael Porter identified 5 forces that take place in any industry. The power of suppliers, the power of customers, the threat of new entrants, the competition among the participants, and substitutes, okay? Don't have time right now, unfortunately, to walk through all of those, but in any industry you can look at that and say, what's going on here? And you can think for yourselves of those different industries where the buyer has all the power, or the industries where the supplier has all the power, or the industries where, you know what, there are some entrenched people who are running it, and there is absolutely no threat of anybody else coming in to knock them off, things like that. So know what kind of market you're getting into. It's one of those old classic things, people keep trying to tinker with it, but it's a great framework. So Porter's 5 forces. Customer needs analysis, look at your customers, what do they need? Demographic trends. Customers might really, really, really need buggy whips, but you know, the horse cart's going away, okay? So what's really happening? Demographic trends, yeah, you know, certain markets, certain whatever is happening. If you're playing to an aging market, for example, right now, as more and more baby boomers age, that could be a very positive thing, even if the need isn't there right now. And technology trends. You know, how does technology serving these markets? So look at those things in terms of what's happening in the market. Never apologize for your slides. I won't apologize for this slide. I hate this slide. Okay, but it's not an apology. So kind of ignore this. Picture, yeah, proof that's not my slides, right? Scenario planning. When I say scenario planning, a lot of people think, okay, I'm trying to guess what's going to happen. And it's like I'm trying to be a a quarterback or something who's throwing a long pass, and I want the ball to be right where the receiver's going to be. It's not the way we look at scenario planning. Scenario planning says, let's take a look at the world among some major dimensions, or at least the market in terms of some major dimensions. And we're not going to try to guess which one's going to happen, because we don't know. And you might take some major dimensions of, okay, we're going to have an economic boom. Okay, is it an economic boom or an economic bust? And is, and then, for example, do people get much more concerned with digital privacy or less concerned with digital privacy? Okay? And you put yourself right in the middle and say, we don't know which way it's going to go. We don't know whether we're going to have a boom and people are good. But then you say, okay, for my product, maybe I'm doing some kind of smartphone app, right? For my product, what does it mean to my product or my company if it's a boom and people care a lot about privacy? What does it mean if it's a boom and people don't care about privacy? What does it mean if it's a, et cetera, et cetera? And you start mapping those things out in those quadrants. And then you start to say, okay, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know which one of those is going to happen. But how do I come up with product ideas, a human capital strategy, technology strategy, whatever I need for my organization that will survive or perhaps even do well in each of those areas? And in some cases, it's not going to happen. I mean, you might come up with something that says, yeah, this will work if in 3 out of 4 of those, but the 4th one, it's going to be a nightmare. Well, that's fine. You come up with another product that kind of plugs that hole and will be good there. Okay, so it's more of a portfolio optimization approach to say, how can I be successful in any organization without rolling the dice and saying, I'm going to bank on it being a boom and people don't care about privacy, so therefore I'm going to do this, whatever it is app. Now, some startups, though, I will say some startups, who are not our clients, some startups do the throw the dice. I'm going to start something in my garage, and if the world goes the way I hope it goes, I'll be rich. If it doesn't, well, I'll go back and get my degree, or something like that, right? Nobody in here will do that, of course. You'll get your degree first, then do the startup. But for scenario planning, again, it's not trying to pick the winner. It's understanding the environment, back to the understanding what could happen, how do you do it. Does that make sense? Yes. And actually, that's a lot of fun. The scenario planning is always a lot of fun. Opportunity, strategic direction. From here, what you do is say, okay, great. I know what's happening in the world. I have some sense of scenario planning. Now I'm looking at those scenarios, and where and how can I compete? A lot is said and written on this, but there are basically three ways that companies compete. Either compete by innovation, efficiency, or customer service. Yeah, okay, there might be some exceptions. But basically, a company will either be very strong in innovation and being the one who always brings new products to market, cool ideas, cool stuff that people are willing to pay a premium for. Efficiency, Walmart, right? All right, it will give you the lowest cost thing, boom, 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 and it's cheap. Or customer service, high touch, make people feel good. They don't care that what you're giving them is tried and true and old, and that it's really expensive because they like the fact that they're staying at their Ritz and they're being taken care of, or whatever. Okay? Again, there's some minor exceptions, but know which of these your organization, your company, can compete on. Okay? Are you going to be innovative? Are you going to be low cost? And it's back to those 5 forces. What are you bringing to the market? And if you can't really answer this question, then think on it some more and do some more research. Make sense? And so if we had more time, we could talk about your assignment for me is go back and think about companies and whether they compete on innovation, efficiency, or customer service. Internal analysis, I mentioned this already. Does your organization have the capabilities necessary to do what you're trying to do up here? Can you build those capabilities, right? Maybe you don't, that's fine. Go out and buy them or train your people or whatever, or buy the technology. And then, and look at these across people, culture, skills, technology. If you want to develop a customer service organization that is prime on the customer service, and you don't have a customer service culture, it's going to be a very, very rocky time, and you should probably not start, okay? But think about those things, your people, your culture, your skills, technology. Can you actually do? And if you look and say, gee, I really can't, then you're back up here to say, okay, how do I think about this? And what's done best is when you're doing this analysis at the same time, and you're able to say, hey, wait a second, we got a lot of people here who are really good at this. That market's going away, but how do we take that capability, that skill, and apply it to something else the market needs? Okay, from there into the home stretch here. I'm going to cut to the chase. You test it and you vet it, okay? you do more analysis on it, make sure it holds water. You run it by people. You put it in a nice document. You do some financial modeling, which I won't go into here, to run the estimates of is this going to actually make money, and will people appreciate it, because those financial backers want to know that. And then you are able to develop that business case to say, here's what we're going to do. But look at this as we bring this all together. Again, the point of strategic planning around communications. Here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to build our organization to get there. Hey, people of our organization, we know you're great at this. We're going to build your skills in this because the market needs it. And we're going to do these wonderful things for our investors, for our stakeholders, for our shareholders, for the environment, for whatever it is that your plan is. And that was the pitch in 25 minutes. Any questions? I wanted to save a few minutes at least for questions, and I know I went through that very quickly. But what do you think? Make sense? Everybody want to go out and everybody wants to be a strategic planner, just like me when you got 20 years. While you're thinking your question, I'll tell a funny story. Funny story. My son has the assignment of writing a paper about a profession that he wants to be in, and he told us on the way. He told me on the way home. He says he's going to write about being a consultant. And I said, John, why are you writing about that? Because he'd never said that to me before. He said, well, because you have to interview you have to interview someone from the profession. I figured it'd be easy enough if I could just interview you. So so his paper on being a consultant, just because that he doesn't have to leave the house to interview somebody. Anyway, any questions, any thoughts, anything that I blitzed through that you'd like to step back and ask a question about? Yes?
Do you think it's realistic for a company, you said 3 opportunities, a company could be innovative, efficient, or have great customer service. Do you think it's realistic for a company to aim for all 3, or it's one and then the other 2 come?
I'm sorry. I'm glad you asked that, because then I wasn't clear when I said it. Companies should aim for 1. The textbook says it's impossible to be all 3. I can't imagine being all 3. Generally, companies will be 1 clearly. They might have a little bit of a hint of a second one. But to be, for example, to be extraordinary customer service and very efficient gets really hard, because customer service is expensive, right? Innovation takes a lot of other costs, that things. So it's usually just one that you want to focus on. Any other questions? I can tell you another story about my kids. Yeah.
Ask a question. I remember when you made your presentation to the students at Plum Park Silver Spring, and the question was posed to you about your background and how it prepared you to be a consultant. I thought that was fascinating. So maybe if you can share that with this group, I think it would be beneficial.
Okay. Well, I hope I give the same answer. People often ask me, especially in interviews, why do I work at Accenture? And I answer the question first of, before I tell you why I work at Accenture, I have to tell you about why I'm a consultant. So I started off my career in the Navy, and I was, my first 3 years, I was a ship driver. I was on a destroyer. Great experience. Had a lot of responsibility at a young age, and was very responsible for a very small part of the Navy, right? Whether I was driving the ship or I was a tactical action officer or something, there's that specific unit had a lot of I had a lot of responsibility, and people did what I told them to do. Oddly enough, the captain did what I told him to do, which was kind of scary sometimes. But so then I went from there to naval intelligence. And at naval intelligence, I had a staff of 0. Okay, nobody worked for me. My job was to look at threats around the world and to brief carrier battle groups and others on what to do. And oddly enough, people did what I told them to do, which was kind of scary, especially since that was during the first Gulf War. And as I went to business school, then I compared the 2 experiences of, okay, I had a situation where I had a great deal of control over a very small number of people, okay, whether it was the 20 or 40 people who worked directly for me on my ship, or knowing that ship would do whatever was going on that I was responsible for at the time. Huge control over a small area, a small group. went to intelligence where I had no control. No control. Nobody had to do what I told them to do, right? But I had a lot of influence on a really large group of people. And I thought, and then from as I was thinking about that, actually before I went to business school, so I found myself in a role that I was becoming kind of the world's expert at something, and I didn't want to be the world's expert at something, but sitting there waiting for someone to call me to ask about, mine warfare or something. And so as I was looking at careers coming out of business school, I thought, okay, I could go into regular industry, where I could get my desk in my office and my staff, and who knows, maybe even my factory someday, and I would have a lot of control over this thing. Or I could go into consulting and say, I'm not going to have any control of anything, but I'm going to have a greater opportunity, hopefully, to influence a lot more things. And so whether that's the clients I have in government, at Homeland Security and other places, or we do a lot of nonprofit work where I get involved in helping out with nonprofit organizations and doing strategic planning for them and for even churches and charities and things like that. And so that I find satisfying, moving around and having that, hopefully, again, that influence of in that way. So hopefully that's close to the same answer I gave.
It is, thank you.
I've got it down pat. I'm working on it. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Did you study marketing strategy, or what do you like that?
Yeah. In business school, I had no marketing until business school. And in business school, there were several classes. There was general marketing concepts and marketing strategy, how to take a look at different things. So yeah, there is some of that. I took more of a general strategic management curriculum within school, but certainly a marketing piece to it.
Well, this is an introduction to business class.
Okay.
They just completed a individual business plan that I taught them, and they had to do the research, the demographics, everything that was on the left hand.
Right.
They had to do, and then they had to present it and convince us to invest in their product or their service. And they also did an international project prior to that, where they got into groups of teams, and they had to, they went into a foreign country, take an idea into a foreign country, and had to do the research on the foreign country, and then present it again to the class and tell us how much money they would need to invest in this product. So this is what they've been doing. So everything on the left-hand side was very interesting because they have already done that stuff. So it's good.
That's good. And foreign countries are interesting in a sense. I mean, Accenture, we're a global company, and I don't mean global in the sense that we have we have a headquarters somewhere and we have offices. It's not clear where our headquarters is. Okay, we have a corporate headquarters in Ireland because every company has to have one, but our headquarters is wherever our CEO happens to be at the moment. We have no headquarters building. I mean, there is no corporate headquarters building that we go to. There's no headquarters building in the United States for our U.S. work. It's just where people connect by phone or wherever. And on any given call, I'm likely to be on the phone with people from around the world. We have 240,000 people around the world. 40,000 in the U.S. Everybody else is scattered around around the world. And it is amazing, though, is even though the world is getting flat and things are getting more and more similar, just because something's a great idea in the U.S. or a great idea in Northern Virginia or Maryland, does not mean that even taking it to Western Europe, never mind, Africa, Asia, somewhere, that same idea just might not fly. So it's really important to understand what's different about this country or what's the same about that country as you go in there. So anyway, that sounds great. Yes.
I understand that you were international businesses. What types of things do you do between the nations? Like, what's the one example of something that you've done internationally, and how does it differ?
Now, I'll have to say, well, for my personal work, well, let's go here. My personal work is more government focused, so I would not get involved in trying to sell things to corporate organizations outside. However, I won't say the country because, I won't say the country, but we went to work on a customs proposal work to develop a custom system to collect duties and tariffs for people importing and exporting. And there's a different mindset in some countries than there is, say, in the US or in Western Europe about how important is it that the government actually be able to collect those taxes, right? In the US and Western Europe primarily, and certainly countries like Japan, Singapore, others, you look at it and say, okay, here's the role, here's the tax, create the system that creates the text, and people say, hey, as long as the system's easy to use, that's great, fine, make it work for me because I want my system to work. In other countries where corruption and graft and other problems are more common, people don't want a system that actually works. Okay, it's better to have this kind of nebulous sense of, okay, well, how's this really going to work? And so we were posed with the problem of, one, okay, we knew the system had to work the same way it would work in the US because that was part of what the senior government folks wanted. But the whole change management about how do you get the employees to buy into this system was completely different than how it would be in the US. Again, in the US it would be, okay, your life will be easier because of this, and that would be enough for them. But in the other countries, it's okay, realizing that they might make part of their income from the fact that the old system's inefficient, and they can in other ways kind of skim things off. So just one example. So
in that instance, how did you have to change your strategy to work with the powers that be in that particular country?
In that case, it was again, the solution strategy was the same, but it was much more about, I hate to say it, well, much more about, okay, how do we get people to accept this? How do we get people to, and working more closely with the government on educating them that the old way of them supplementing their income is not going to work. And we actually had to kind of look to more, how shall I say, other kind of subcontractors to come to us who were better than we were, frankly, at dealing with, I don't want to say fraud and corruption, because we do fraud analytics all the time for companies and banks and everything. But no kidding, there's a guy at the docks who's trying to skim money. How do you? Then there are other people who deal with that better than we do, because it's certainly not something that's one of our core areas of expertise. How do you deal with that? And we had to get more involved. But it was also working with the government to say, hey, unfortunately, there's a physical danger here, concern of our folks who are going to be implementing a system that people will, be very opposed to. And not just opposed to, again, because they don't like Apple instead of Mac, or Apple instead of BC. So it's all about, we focus heavily on implementability. It's one thing to have a great idea, but if it's not implemented, who cares? And so that took us all the way down to, we can build the system, but no one's going to use it unless we solve this problem.
What would you recommend to my students if they were interested in a career in strategic management? What would be some of the things you would say would be great for them to do to get on their resume?
Okay, I'm going to answer it in two ways. I'm going to do the things to do and get on the resume. Strategic management, kind of the core skill, if you will, is I always come down, what does a strategist do? I see and articulate relationships, okay? It's looking at a bunch of facts and kind of seeing a trend and seeing the relationship among the trends. And the test for me of a strategy person for a non-strategy person is looking at a PowerPoint slides. And you've all seen the PowerPoint slides that have 11 bullets on them, right? That's somebody saying, I have 11 things I want to tell you, okay? And you're not going to remember 11 things. This sounds really simple. Strategy slides have 3 bullets on them because they've taken the 11 bullets and said, no, there's actually 3 concepts here. And let's put those 11 things into 3 concepts that then someone can actually absorb and listen to. So on one hand, that's just good communication skills. On the other hand, but if you're the kind of person who is able to say, well, there's a lot going on here, but it seems to be the key issues are boom, boom, and boom. Or, gee, the solution is this, or boom, boom, and boom. And you end up with 3 or 4, you're constantly ending up with 3 or 4, you're probably doing a pretty good job of consolidating that sense. And if you can do that, then it's easy to communicate, our company is good at this, the market's doing this, competitors are doing this, therefore, let's combine that together, and that's a skill. Now, that said, I do not have the skill, on the other end of that equation, to make all this work. When there are 147 different things, and the designers say, no kidding, we have to go through these 147 sequentially, I'll die, I'll run away and scream and stuff, okay? But so that's one thing. What to get on your resume? Business skills are good. A linkage of business and technology, okay? We don't look for technology people who know business, but we do look for business people who know technology, okay? I shouldn't say we don't. I mean, Accenture does, but in strategy, it's more of, it's that. The ability to deal with uncertainty and weird situations, the ability to start with a blank sheet of paper and come up with an idea, okay? Again, I'm great at coming up with a 1 or 2 page plan of, okay, well, it seems like this is what we got to do. And somebody else needs to get me to say, okay, well, yeah, you're right, that is what we got to do. Now there are 87 steps in that. So, okay, great, somebody else do the 87 steps, okay? So look for that ability to start, again, prove that you can start with no concept of anything, back to that business plan. Gee, what's the market? Who is this? What are we trying to do? Okay, but here's what's key. If you can do that, that looks good. As far as on resumes, again, business classes, some level of technology, working in team. It sounds trite. Working in teams, leadership is good. Communication skills, should be able to show initiative. Those kinds of things.
Even though Mr. Stahlman had to quickly go through his presentation, what he did reinforced what you've been learning about in your Business 101 class, reinforced what I said to you about the requisite skills for you to be successful. Not just having a strategic business plan that's great on paper, but you not being able to speak to it. I talked to them about imbuing their plan with that passion, so that when an angel investor says, well, that sounds fantastic, I'll give you the $10 million to launch it. Or the bank will say, I'll give you the $10 million to launch that, if you work with this person or that person. So having the communication skills, not just the skills to create something on paper, but to be able to talk about it passionately. To be flexible, and I think that's what you've seen in Mr. Stahlman today. He talked about agility. He talked about doing the analysis, but then being agile enough, flexible enough to say, well, I have to adjust this, I have to tweak that, I have to go ahead and experiment with it and then see whether or not it flies. And if not, I have to make some adjustments here. I have to make sure, as the head of the company, that I have the right people, that I have the right strategy, that if I'm going to be focusing on innovation, that my innovation has to match with what the market is requiring at any given time. So you've learned things today that reinforce what you are learning in class, and that will set you on a path to success. So with that, I'd like to thank Mr. Stahlman for coming to us today.
My pleasure. If I could add one last thing on the question of kind of skills and what to do and what to keep doing, and actually to your points, the strategy person, and certainly he's not the only one, but is often the one who is much more heavily focused on, okay, so what problem is it exactly here that we're trying to solve, and why are we doing this, okay? And again, there are just tons of things my implementation and technology and other brethren can do that I cannot do, okay? But it is, I don't know whether it's gratifying or sometimes frustrating when I walk into something and there's a whole lot of activity and plans to do something, and I'll look at it and say, I don't get it, guys. What problem is this solving? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? And I'll say, well, because, and the short end is, well, because we can, okay? But that's not why you're trying to do it. We're trying to do it for this reason, and that focus on what exactly, and the more you can focus your business case on, this is what we're trying to solve, this is what we're trying to serve, therefore we're going to do this, that's a key point. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.